You could come to this film and this script knowing quite a lot about the period, or nothing. If you know a lot, you'll know that a lot of it is true. If you know a lot, you'll also know that a lot of it is nonsense. It couldn't have happened. Some of it did happen. Some of it couldn't have happened. I found that absolutely fascinating, that somebody would look at history in that way, through a completely, you might even say, skewed pair of eyes, in order to tell a very human and in many ways modern story. You know, they're wandering around in 17th century costume, but I think are talking like normal people. You know she has a problem. There's something to do with her past. There's something to do with a dead daughter. You find out about that stuff as the film progresses. And in a way, the more that she's loved, it's not giving away a big secret to say that the film becomes a big love story. The more that she's loved, the more she remembers of her past. In a way, she's kind of locked off the past and can't summon it up in order to move on as a person. And she has to survive. So she's a woman running her own life and her own business. The importance goes along with the insanity of it as well. I mean, Louis XIV has so much power that he could decide to move out of the Louvre and build a palace at Versailles and then demand the greatest gardens that have ever been built in the world on a place so not designed to have gardens. Swamplands, 18,000 people building them, thousands of them dying, all of them getting bitten by mosquitoes on a kind of hourly basis, and impossible land to build on and cultivate things. And not only that, terrible problems with irrigation. So this famous series of fountains, in fact, only could be turned on one at a time, but then he would be wandering around and there'd be somebody kind of with a flag going, turn the next one on, he's coming. So in his imagination, all these fountains were going constantly. So it's, what is it? It's hubris or glory or magnificent imagination of somebody with that much money and power. We went into Louis's bedroom and there was this gold sort of fence in front of his bed, and I said, what's that for? To keep the tourists back? And the guy said, no, that's where every night when Louis went to sleep, there would be about 80 courtiers watching him for what was called his little sleep or big sleep, whichever one it was. 80 of them would stand there watching him go to sleep. Somewhere around 4 in the morning, he'd wake up and send 40 of them away. So 20 or 30 were left watching him until he woke up in the morning, just staring at him. Same was true when he was eating. People just stood and watched him eat, hoping he might throw a conversational crumb at them, never mind an actual one. And of course, a lot of that was practical. It was how to keep people from plotting against him. Right, well, you just stand there and watch me sleep, and of course you won't be talking, so you can't plot. But I think, or also, of course, what one feels is that that had to have created an extraordinary sort of aloneness. I don't know about loneliness, but huge aloneness. We're very, very blessed in this country with people who run all those departments. They are phenomenal craftspeople. And, you know, when I was taken in early pre-production to the props department, and a huge room was, the tables were absolutely covered, not just in one purse for Sabine with a neat label, a choice for me of about 7 or 8 of things that she might have attached to her belt. All the homework had been done. They all looked phenomenal. It was just a question of going around and saying, well, I like that one. And I suppose, because I have an art school background before I went to drama school, you know, I have a kind of shorthand talking to production designers and DPs. You know, we're looking with similar eyes, and I know to trust their skills. I had incredibly skillful people to work with, and the only terror and crossed fingers was just about money, as usual. Have we got enough money to actually do that? You know, we had to build an outdoor ballroom with working fountains, and that was only one set. The film couldn't have happened ever without Kate saying yes, and I couldn't have done it without somebody I trust as much as I do her, and that I can stand back from and actually, you know, just applaud. She's phenomenal on every level, not just on the day when you're working with her, but also any director would go down in their knees and say huge thank yous to whatever deity for the fact that when you're in the editing room, whether you're looking at the wide shot, the medium shot, or the close-up, there is perfect continuity. She knows exactly which line her hand went up to the leather strap, which foot she stepped off on, and it just gets slotted in, and not in a kind of boring technical way. I think she finds it quite freeing to be technically on top of it. She arrives knowing it backwards, and she arrives open and non-judgmental and listening. She's done her work, and now she'll just stand there and listen to her fellow actors and answer them. So what you've got from her is not just huge emotional commitment to the line, but also you can put the camera on her when she's listening, because it's telling you a lot. I was helped in one sense by the fact that if you're playing Louis XIV, you don't have to move very much. You kind of stand still and order people about. So basically, it wouldn't be too much of a joke to say that you keep the same expression on your face as when you're directing the film, and they plonk a wig on your head. But no, I mean, you know, there was stuff to do, you know, not least a dance number that had to be learnt and practiced. I learnt to rely on a lot of people. You know, I had a DP with eyes in the back of her head, and at first Jack Ravenscroft, who was fantastic support, and Joan Bergen, wonderful costume designer, whose sensibilities don't stop at costume. You know, she'll watch the monitor, and a lot of you have to be surrounded by a lot of truth tellers. I had seen him, like most people, in Rust and Bone, and thought, magnificent actor, and his name was suggested, and I happened to be filming. Some things you think are meant to be, maybe, because I was filming in Belgium with Patrice Leconte, and his name had come up, and I'd seen Rust and Bone, and it's a very hard part to cast opposite Kate. And I said, does he happen to be here? Because I'm here. And he happened to be in Antwerp, and I was in Brussels. And so he came, and we met the next day, and I'm thinking, is Mr. Rust and Bone going to kind of slam his way into the room? Delightful, smiling person arrived, sat down, and it was just a kind of instinctive response as far as I was concerned. Stanley is a director too, so it's pretty challenging, frankly. you're always aware of, his eyes are flicking around thinking, how would I shoot this scene? But fortunately, Stanley's a very good friend, and we've worked together before. So, in a way, you sort of dial him up. And I wouldn't quite say plonk a wig on his head and a hat on his head in the same way as I was kind of plonking a wig on my head. And I'm sure it was challenging for him to walk onto a set in England, having to play with English actors in an English accent, in relatively formal dialogue. But you would never know it because he's such a relaxed force, as the outtakes will prove to those who are allowed to watch them. They'd have to be over 16 is all I can say with Stanley's outtakes. But no, he's a joy and a wonderful actor. I just want to remind them that they're alive. I don't want to give them a lecture. I don't want to organize the inside of their heads. This is real once upon a time, in a way. I mean, literally once upon a time. I hope they believe the people so much that they get involved in what those people think and feel. I hope that it engages all of them, visually and emotionally, and as, in a way, like all of us, when we're told a story, you become a child in a way. You have all of your defenses taken away from you. And that wonderful thing of sitting together in the dark with a bunch of other people and being told a story, that's really all it is. But it is a love story, so it does have an agenda as far as that's concerned.